thank you all for logging in today to this great cybersecurity chat session. We're very pleased to have Bob Wandell with us today. This is the Cyber Center for Education and Innovation, home of the National Cryptologic Museum. We're located outside of the National Security Agency in Fort Meade, Maryland. And it's a great museum. If you've never been there, would love to bring you in virtually. We actually have a virtual robot that you can sign into and walk around the museum. If you're obviously the folks in Utah and California who are coming in today, it'd be a little difficult for you to get all the way out to Maryland. So we actually have a robot that you can log in, and happy to talk to you about that in the future. But Bob has got over 39 years of experience in information assurance and information security technologies. So you guys are in for a treat today. Please ask questions in the chat room. Bob will take those questions. You've got one of the leading experts in the nation on the call today to talk to you about system security engineering. He worked quite extensively in the Defense Department and with international organizations. He's currently the Vice President of TSG Engineering. And so hopefully he will be talking obviously about the topic of system security engineering, because he is a certified information system security professional, or CISSP. And then he'll also give you some insight into why he picked cyber. The reason we are in your homes today is there's over 500,000 openings in cybersecurity today, and we need to fill those openings. So we're here to share with you not only the techniques of cybersecurity engineering, but also what the job looks like. So Bob, over to you.
All right, thanks, Mark. Welcome, everybody. I'm going to talk a little bit about system security today, and Mark gave me an introduction there that's kind of tough to live up to, but I'll try to not let him down today. The interesting thing about getting into this particular career field is it didn't exist when I was in high school, and over the course of the time that I've spent out in the professional world, this has actually evolved to become a discipline that's actually got its own certifications and secret handshakes and everything else like that. So it's been quite of an interesting trip. But before we get started, we really need to understand what we're talking about and what's a system. And this is probably about as technical as I'll get today, but a system basically is something that takes inputs, creates outputs, uses resources, and constrained by things. So obviously everybody knows what resources are. We're kind of like raw materials in a manufacturing process. Outputs are what that process would deliver. Constraints are how fast you have to do it, and resources are things like the people that are going to perform it. So in the beginning, way back in the day, probably let me take a step back, it's probably useful to understand the history of the term as it relates to systems. Now, systems are, like I just described, are kind of a simple thing. The cool thing about them is you can actually build them, put them together to make larger systems that do more things. When you move into system security, the history of that term has had a lot of different spins to it. So early on, when everything was physical, we just talked about security. So security for a system might mean locking the door or something like that. With the advent of computers, we realized, oh, we got to worry about this computer security thing. That kind of evolved to be, okay, well, we'll put a lock on the computer and we'll lock it in a rack. And that's how we'll do security. And that quite didn't cut it because it wasn't really covering what we were worried about. So as we evolved further, we said, oh, it's really about the information in the computer. So we'll use the term information security. And that kind of got us closer. The problem is the term security kind of meant, oh, we're actually secure, we're perfectly safe. That's really not it. So we invented a new term called information assurance, which was designed to talk about the risk to information when you're using it, and nothing's ever perfect, which kind of got closer to the core, but it didn't have any pizzazz. So we got a new marketing person, and presto, we now have cybersecurity, which kind of talks about the same thing that was system security from the beginning. What we're really talking about is the information that systems use to perform their function, and what you have to do to protect that. And the person that does that, as far as designing systems to do that, is an information system security engineer. kind of one of the things that I've done over the course of my career. The goal of a system security engineer is to look at a system and make sure that it does what it's supposed to and nothing else. So we're looking to make sure that if the system is supposed to process checks and get them deposited in the bank, it doesn't provide an extra copy to someone else to do something else bad with it. So that's kind of what system security is all about. In order to do that, we look at a lot of different things, but there's three core aspects of information that we typically worry about. The first of which is confidentiality, the second is its availability, and the third is its integrity. And I'll talk a little bit more in the following pages about those. But when we're talking about information, we're talking about things like the input information, the input data. Is it coming from who we want it to come from? Is it correct? The output data, things that we're delivering out, are we delivering that in a way that people can rely on it? The configuration data of the system within it, is that as it should be? Is it unchanged? Are commands in the system correct? Are they not being altered or something done to them, such as the system is performing in a way that it shouldn't? Telemetry information, is the system providing broadcasts of how it's operating, and can we rely on what's coming from it? Location data, and all sorts of other stuff. All those types of information have aspects of confidentiality, availability, integrity that we have to worry about as we go forward. We tend to talk about those things in the form of rules, which we refer to as security policies. So policies in the security world are the rules by which things can occur. How confidential should this information be? Who can see it? Who can't see it? How available should this system be? Does it have to be operating 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? Or can it be operated only 8 hours a day? And how sure do we need to be that the information is correct inside? How sure we have to be about the information receiving that is correct? So those are things that we worry about when we're looking about how a system is going to operate and how we're examining the security aspects of it, or how we design security in to have it perform its function. In speaking about confidentiality, that aspect is pretty much straightforward, and it's the one that gets a lot of press. A lot of people know what this means, because anybody who's seen the news lately has seen something about, oh, somebody's lost credit card numbers, someone has had their passwords compromised, someone has had some other piece of information exposed. Confidentiality is making sure that only the people that are authorized see or have access to the information within the system or what it delivers. And the types of tools that we use for that are access lists, passwords, encryption, even locked rooms and safes, because not everything is done in the cyber world. Lots of things still get done in the physical world. So all those are the types of tools that we look to employ to make sure that we can ensure confidentiality in a system. Like I said, typical things that can fail are, the system can expose credit card numbers, so nefarious people can grab access to other people's credit card numbers and go use them without their permission. Health information, whether or not someone's got a particular ailment, can get exposed and cause embarrassment or other repercussions. So those are the types of things that confidentiality is all about. Lots of information systems have confidentiality issues, so we look to make sure that we can protect that. On a different note, integrity is something not quite the same. So when we worry about integrity, we're not so much worried about whether or not people see the information in there. It may be perfectly public information. What we're worried about is whether or not the information is correct. So in a simple way, if a sign is supposed to say stop, don't cross a railroad track, we want to make sure that it says stop and it doesn't say go when the train is coming. So it's important to make sure that protection mechanisms are built in the system so that when it's important, the integrity information is maintained. So some of the tools that we use for that are digital signatures, locked enclosures, sometimes encryption. We build those aspects into the system when integrity is important. the way systems like that can fail, people can go in and change their grades if they're able to access a system. Application settings could get changed such that the application might deliver the wrong answer at the wrong time. A great prank is to send a fake meeting invite to someone so that they show up 20 miles away from where they're supposed to be at a meeting that really isn't there. And probably the biggest one that everybody's aware of is phone scammers. Lots of people get calls from the Microsoft Security Center where there's something wrong with their computer, or they get a phone call that claims they're from the IRS and there's something wrong with their taxes. These are all attacks on the integrity of the information coming in, who it's coming from, because they're trying to get access to do something else much worse. So that's what integrity is all about, making sure that you know the information that you're receiving is correct and from a correct source. Moving on to availability. Availability is the system capable of doing what it needs to do when it needs to do it? So the most common failure mechanism here is a power failure. Everybody's been through a power failure. And when that happens, systems, especially information systems, don't work. So in the availability world, sometimes it's much more important that the system is available than whether or not the information within it is protected or the integrity of the information in it's protected. So for instance, if we have a life support system that's creating oxygen for a spacecraft, we want to make sure that we don't care who knows that the machine is on or who turned it on. We just want to make sure that it stays on. So things that require high availability, things that need to be available are things like airline reservation systems. So sure, I don't know if anybody remembers a few years ago a failure in the airline reservation system grounded planes all up and down the East Coast. Imagine from a commerce website like eBay if they couldn't take orders or couldn't process things, either from an internal failure of the system or some sort of distributed attack on it. So those are all aspects of availability that get woven into the overall equation of what it means to design a system to protect itself from the bad things that you don't want to have. So what's it like being an information security engineer? Well, it's cool because one of the most important things is you need to have a quest to understand how things work and when they work, what needs to be protected when they're doing their thing. So there's an aspect of continuous learning every time you engage with a new problem or a new system, to dig into the details. What's it all about? How's it doing? What's it supposed to do? And then look at it from an attack perspective. So if it needs to do this particular thing, what would be the bad things that I don't want to happen? And then once collecting all of those, organize them in a way so that you can begin to look at technology and how you can actually apply that to prevent those bad things from happening. Technology is always evolving very fastly, so there's always new things available practically every day that could solve a problem or could fill a gap for things that are going on. So being an ISSE, you need to be on top of all the things that are current, and oh, by the way, all the new ways that people have attacked systems so that you can begin to address those things as well as with the technology coming in. The key part in all of this, as an ISSE, it's very, very important to build the security into the system from the beginning, because it's much more difficult to go back and change it, to go add things on the outside or band-aid things to it to try to patch areas that you missed, because invariably that doesn't work. Security needs to be created in the system from the start to be successful. One of the ways that I've been working lately to do that is one of the things that I am is a certified Scrum Master. So I've been working with folks in the software development area to make sure that security becomes something that's a core piece of what happens when people write new software programs. So with the idea of building security in from the beginning, it's important all the way down to the programmer creating those first lines of code for the system to do its thing, to be thinking from a security perspective as it begins. Again, there's two aspects of an ISSE. One is designing to meet the security needs of the product, and the other is analyzing its defenses to understand how to attack it. And there's probably two different sub-roles from an ISSE that goes with that. One is kind of on the architect side, where you're actually thinking about systems and thinking about how to build them. And the other is on the attacker side, where you're either trying to scan to make sure that all the security mechanisms are in place, or you're actually doing a penetration test or a friendly attack to see how well the system performs in its environment and whether or not it can withstand attacks from the outside. So oftentimes those are not the same people that do that, because it kind of is a bit of conflict of interest. But as an ISSE, you can fall into either role as part of your career. And now with as things have moved further on from the information systems, there's many more things that are now allowing computers and information systems to touch the physical world. Manufacturing systems, planes, trains, and automobiles, personal assistants and appliances. All those things are now becoming not only computers, but computers that are networked with some sort of mothership somewhere out on the internet. From a manufacturing system, lots of times those systems are designed to optimize just-in-time production. So there's a very tight linkage between ordering supplies and having production occur. And any malfunctions in that, any hiccups in that, any perturbations, whether by the physical world or the computer world, can cause a big problem in production. From an airplane perspective, computer-controlled flight, computer-controlled landings. I don't know how many people realize that more than likely, if you've been on a plane, the computer's actually landed the plane and the pilot has been there just in case the computer kind of got confused. That's real, that's now. From an information system perspective, that's important to make sure that the information in that system is correct and it's always available. Coming down the road not too far, self-driving cars. Imagine the amount of image processing, sensor processing, and things like that need to occur, and how much you'll need to rely on the information system within the car to make the right decisions on your behalf. Those are important things that are being worked on right now today that will affect everyone's future as we go forward. With respect to personal assistants, are you sure that they're actually giving the right information you ask? As we began, Mark had turned his lights on with Alexa. Well, did Alexa just turn his lights on, or did she do something else when she did that? Don't know. But those are things that require analysis and a critical look to make sure that flaws or bugs are not built into these systems that can end up harming people, since they do touch the physical world. From a more interesting perspective, as appliances become more aware and networked, when will be the first time that somebody's refrigerator orders 30 gallons of milk by mistake and it shows up by virtue of an Amazon delivery? That's possible now. Refrigerators can take a look at what's inside and order for you if you want. Just like printers can order toner. And as things roll forward and begin to get more about artificial intelligence implemented and all that, how are we going to make sure that the right security rules are built into machines so that the artificial intelligence lives within the constraints to make sure with what we want the system to do? For those of you who love Terminator movies, is Skynet here or not? That's kind of one of the things that we're on the verge of having to deal with. So that's kind of what information or system security is all about. And for me, it's been kind of a lifetime quest. I'd like to leave you with one example that is one of my favorites from one of my favorite shows called Star Trek: The Next Generation. Those of you that are aware of that recognize the characters, Jean-Luc Picard, who's the captain, and Data, who's the android. In this particular episode, Captain Picard has been taken over by the Borg, a alien species that assimilates entire species just to get their information knowledge. And the Borg is about to assimilate Earth, which will be a bad thing. Data has actually connected himself into the Borg hive and is trying to bring down the defenses so that the Starfleet can defeat the Borg collective. And lo and behold, all the access to their defensive weapon systems are blocked. The security is built in such that Data cannot access that. But Captain Picard gives Data one bit one word that enables him to defeat the Borg, and that's sleep. And it turns out that the command to tell all the Borg to sleep was not protected the same as the defensive systems, the weapon systems in the Borg cube. And lo and behold, Data tells the Borg to sleep and they're defeated. The point of all this is here's the Borg who is over a millennia assimilated thousands of civilizations and acquired vast amounts of knowledge, and they still can't get it right. So with respect to system security, this is something that is a practice more than a definitive answer. Everything is in the area of what's good enough and can I live with this? Can we afford that? Being a system security engineer, one of the things that happen is there's very little notoriety when things are working well. It's only when something happens and something has gone wrong and something's been exposed, you get lots of press and get your name in the paper. But with that, it's an exciting world to be in. And that's pretty much all I have to share today. So good with any questions anybody's got at this point.
How early can a high school student start to prepare for this career?
Oh, that's a really good question. And it turns out that anybody with an interest in computers and programming can start to learn now. 9th grade, middle school, never too early. It's all about what you're willing to get into. The internet is a great resource. Things like YouTube, lots of open source things to read about, lots of things to download and play with to get an idea of what it's all about. So the earlier the better. It's all about being interested in the technology and wanting to get into it.
Excellent. Another person asked about, you were talking about the self-driving cars, and we've already saw a YouTube video of somebody taking over a Jeep and being able to drive that Jeep, etc. So from an engineer standpoint, system security engineering standpoint, what is the mindset of the engineer when you're looking at how to protect that car so a bad person can't exploit it?
So the mindset is really about looking out of the box, not being bound or limited by what's there and what might have been designed. The particular example you're referring to is, I believe someone actually attacked the brake system in a Jeep via the satellite radio. So being an ISSE, you tend to take a look back from engineers that design systems, design them kind of in a microcosm. So someone would have designed the brake system, someone would have designed the radio system, and perhaps someone thought, well, hey, it'd be great if these were both connected. Maybe it's easy to do that. But an ISSE would say, well, wait a minute. If I can come through the radio, what other systems can I get access to? What other things could I make happen that would be bad for that Jeep? And that's kind of how you have to think of it.
Great. Another question is, what advice would you give a high school student if they wanted to enter this field of system security engineering?
Have an open mind. Think out of the box. Be creative. And then work hard at being a good problem solver. So it's not good enough to find or postulate all sorts of interesting ways you can attack a system. Oftentimes you have to demonstrate that's possible. And if you can demonstrate that it's possible, you have to figure out how to fix it. So it requires creativity to begin with, and then a systematic approach to be able to address the things that you find or think about.
Excellent. Great answer, Bob.
Oh, by the way, you have to be able to communicate to that to people that may not be technical enough to understand that. So you're not always going to be talking to other geeks. Sometimes you're going to be talking to somebody's grandmother that runs a knitting company. So
excellent. Yeah, I remember a couple of times where we had to share our results to folks who did not have this expertise, and that was the biggest challenge. In fact, it was a bigger challenge than actually doing the analysis. Another from a college degree. Do you need a college degree to be in system security engineering?
I've met lots of system security engineers that have no college degree that are probably some of the sharpest ones that I know. The key is they have a passion for it. And while I say that, the thing that they sometimes miss is that rounded aspect. They may be extremely technical and very good at knowing where the bits are flowing and how the commands work and how to put their fingers on the keyboard, so to speak, and actually implement things. What they might lose is that rounded ability to communicate with people about what they're actually doing. So while it's not necessary, and from a career perspective, if what you're really interested in is really hardcore down in the bits analysis, you can probably do fairly well with that. My counsel would be, don't disregard the ability to communicate to everybody else, because you have to be, the world works collaboratively, and you got to be able to explain to other people what you're doing.
Excellent. What is the best part of your job, and what do you enjoy the most?
Oh, wow. I enjoy new systems, new ways of doing things, different types of systems. So I like to say that I've worked on everything from supporting my wife's website to nuclear command and control systems and everything in between. All of them have something different about them, all of them have different aspects of confidentiality, availability, integrity that you need to address. And then being able to actually look at those and provide some advice, some guidance, some sort of thing that makes somebody's life easier. I like to look at system security as some sort of an enabler rather than just something that says, no, you can't do that. So being able to enable somebody to do something safely that they haven't been in the past is kind of what the good thing is.
Excellent. I'm going to share my screen real quick because one of the questions was, what are the projected growth? And if you see on this chart, go to cyberseek.org and you'll see that there's over 504,000 openings for these cyber jobs. And you can go to any of these states and determine, I think we have somebody on from Illinois. There's over 17,000 jobs. In California, there's 72,000 jobs, etc. And so you can click on any of these states and determine what it is. It'll also tell you what those job titles are, and it will tell you in the NICE cybersecurity workforce framework category what they do. And the work that Bob's talking about is securely provisioning. That's where the system security engineering jobs take place. And as you can see, there's over 30,000 jobs in system security engineering just in California. So there's plenty of opportunities in this field.
Yeah, great point. And I've heard a statistic, 0% unemployment rate. Clearly, with 500,000 jobs, that's pretty true. And it's the kind of thing that is worldwide. So if your goals are not to kind of travel the world and work in a variety of different places, cybersecurity is everywhere. I've had the opportunity to actually work overseas 3 different times, and have enjoyed the variety each time.
How can we trust apps that we download on our phone?
Good question. The first thing is being able to trust where the apps are coming from. It's a big difference when you're downloading from someplace like Apple that actually has a process to kind of vet apps before they even get into their library, compared to things on an Android where be careful who the actual creator of the app is. Do you trust that that particular creator is a trusted or is a safe person to download an app from? The other thing that goes with that is, regardless of who it's from, it's important to understand, well, who actually wrote it, because failures or deficiencies in how the thing was programmed can actually provide access or vulnerabilities into that app that even though you might trust who it came from, a sloppy job in coding can leave it vulnerable for people to access your phone. So key things: know who it's from, be confident and comfortable that who it's from is delivering a quality product and a stable value.
Bob, do you have any parting comments you'd like to share with us?
I'd just like to wish everybody good luck. And this particular career field has been fun for me. Like I said, it didn't exist when I was in high school, so I happened to be in the area of being able to help create that. I think it's got a very, very good future going forward. So if you choose to go this route, I wish you all the luck. And let me know when you're available because I'm still taking resumes.
That's great. And Bob, on behalf of the CCEI at the National Cryptologic Foundation and the National Cryptologic Museum, we thank you for sharing your insights today. And everyone who attended the call, thank you for dialing in.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Wandell, and thank you, Mr. Lepler. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.